Hello all, good evening. We are delighted to welcome you in the 15th VCM of 360-degree learning series being organized by Continuing Professional Education Committee of ICAI. Continuing Professional Education, CPE, is a mean by which members of the profession maintain, improve, broaden their knowledge, skills, develop qualities required for sustainable growth. The ICAI has providing continued inputs to its members through seminars, lectures, workshops, technical literatures, e-learning, web-based trainings, etc. The CPE committee of ICAI has launched 360-degree learning series focused on updating current core areas of CA practice. Hence, we heartily welcome to you in the VCM of overview and opportunities in IBC framework and inspection search seizure in GST. It is immense pride and pleasure for us that in the VCM we have none other than CA Kamisha Soniji, worthy chairperson of CP Committee of ICAI, along with CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, dynamic vice chairman of CP Committee of ICAI, and learned speakers CA Ankit Goyalji and CA Davinder Singh ji. Going ahead, I would like to invite CA Sonia Arora ji, chairperson, Jalandhar branch of NIRC of ICAI, for her address and introduction of Kamisha Soni ji. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Udit ji. Firstly, I extend my gratitude to CA Kamisha Soni ma'am, Chairperson CPE Committee, and CA Charanjotji Nandaji, Vice Chairman of this committee, for giving this wonderful opportunity to the Jalandhar branch for making this a part of this event. Jalandhar branch within this short time span, ma'am, have done 26 webinars and 10 seminars and 2 national conference under the mentorship of Charanjotji Nandaji too, and even 2 students have been selected at the national level in the student talent hunt organized by our branch. And the work of the CP committee, I must say, under the leadership of 2 super energetic personality, Kamisha ma'am and Nanda sir, is doing a commendable job. Seriously, ma'am, the committee is in order to broaden the knowledge horizon and providing various even grants to conduct the CPE program. The session or the webinar, the subject, the topic they are concerned is very much need of the hour and the eye opener. I got the privilege to introduce, Kamisha Soni ma'am, a lady full of grace and compassion, I must say, young, dynamic, and superlative in her field. She is actually a person who need not any introduction. Chairperson of the CPE committee and a woman member empowerment committee, vice chairperson of ethical standard board, and also serving her second consecutive term in the Central Council of ICAI. She is actively participating in various activities at international forums, having remarkable leadership. She has many firsts to her credit, such as distinction of being first woman chairperson of CIRC, first woman chairperson of the BOS of ICI. On account of her immense contribution to the accounting profession and society, she has been honored with many awards. Owing to her vast experience, professional expertise, and sharp acumen, she has served as a director to the board of many companies. It's really a privilege to have a gem like you, ma'am, in our profession. You are a role model for many. Now I request Kamisha ma'am to please address and share words of wisdom with us.
Thank you, Sonia, for the kind introduction. Very good evening. I welcome all esteemed participants of today's VCM. Our very energetic and dynamic co-chairman, CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, who is also chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board and Committee on Management Accounting. Our very renowned and experienced faculty for today's VCM, CA Ankit Goyalji and CA Davinder Singh ji from Delhi. And I welcome leaders from Jalandhar branch, very active branch. I would say so many programs they have conducted. I would like to congratulate for that. Dynamic chairperson, CA Sonia Arora ji, CA Sashi Bhushan ji, Vice Chairman, Secretary Gurleen ji, Treasurer Vinay ji, and other managing committee members of Jalandhar branch of NIRC of ICI. Our very active moderator, CA Vidit ji from Amritsar, and office, of course, our office team and our esteemed members of our prestigious institute. I am delighted to welcome you in this 15th VCM of this 360-degree learning series. हमारा सफर शुरू हुआ था, आज हम 15वें पे आए हैं, 15 this is 15th VCM, And today our eminent speakers will talk about overview and opportunity in IBC framework. And second topic is inspections, research, search and seizure in GST. So I'm glad to inform you that all this VCM has been webcasted throughout the country, and huge number of registration we received for this program also. I'm extremely happy to tell you all that CPE had taken initiative, and you all are aware about that. We have launched this 2 CPE learning series. One is 360-degree learning series, Wednesday Words of Wisdom on every Wednesday, and another one is Beating the Monday Blues on every Monday. So in Monday series, we have totally taken different kind of workshops and seminars, different topics, new thoughts, new emerging area related to professions, and also certain practice management areas we have covered. But under 360-degree learning series, we are covering our core areas of practice, our basic areas of practice, where we are connected. And apart from, we are also coordinating not only traditional areas, I would say GST, income tax, ROC, Companies Act related, but also we are extending related to certain different expertise areas related to our professional domain. So under that 360-degree learning series, generally we have covered not only professional areas, but wealth management, international taxation, Companies Act compliances, forensic accounting, these type of topics we have also covered. And generally ICAI always taking steps forward for helping its member. Like recently Ethical Standard Board, because I was last year chairperson and this year I am vice chairperson, we have given certain relaxation in marketing and promotion of our own practices. Within legal framework, we have revised our advertisement guideline for website also, and we have launched CA Connect portal also for advertisement for our expertise. Here I would say Institute will promote your services through CA Connect portal. This portal is a system of listing of CA firms and individual CA practitioner on the platform of ICAI. So it is a portal for chartered accountants to be connected and get engaged professionally across India. This is sort of like aggregator-based service search engine portal. So our member can connect, and I would request all members who are here, who are attending this webinar, just connect CA Connect for developing your expertise and for the promotion of your expertise. And second, I would like to share about CP committee initiative regarding Samadhan, CP question and answer e-solution forum. So we have already extended window related to taxation issues in share transaction and taxation related to partnership firm. So if members have any query, so you can send through that window. And about today's sessions, specifically, I would say, this is new professional opportunity last 3-4 years. So our members can also develop these area according to their areas of interest related to IBC framework and opportunity for chartered accountant. It is not surprising to find CAs in key functions ranging from finance to advisory and management of businesses to audit. So this wide ranging engagement available to the chartered accountant professional. And here with us for that particular deliberation, CA Ankit ji, who will give you detailed on these areas related to IBC framework and opportunities for CA. And about second topic, inspection, search and seizure in GST. Really, this is also, I would say, new areas related to our professional domain, because after compliance related GST requirement, our member can develop these area also, because after certain time litigations related inspections, search, seizure, so many areas under GST, so our member can develop their expertise in these particular GST Act regulations. For that, we have with us Davinder Singh ji. He will elaborate about this topic in this session. And now, not taking much time, again, I wish a happy learning experience to all the participants, and handing over to our moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamisha ma'am. Thanks a lot for your words of wisdom. The 15th, indeed, this is the 15th and very knowledgeable series which is going on. Plus, you told about the CA Connect portal as well, which is also one of the most important step which has been taken in towards the practicing professionals. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Now, I would like to introduce CA Charanjot Singh Nandaji, worthy and dynamic Vice Chairman of CP Committee of ICAI. CA CS Nanda sir is a Chairman of Internal Audit Standard Board and Committee of Management Accounting and Vice Chairman of CP Committee. He is very experienced practicing chartered accountant and is practicing in the different fields. With the commitment to serve the profession, he has been a member of SEBI, SAFA Committee and IRDA Steering Committee. An avid speaker, he shared knowledges in India and abroad at various events organized by ICAI and other reputed institutes. Sir, please lighten us with your words of wisdom. Over to you, sir. Nanda, sir.
Thank you, Vidyaji. The Honorable Chairman of CP Committee, Madam Kamisha Soni, the Chairman of the host branch, CS Sonia Arora, the revered and respected Speaker of the day, C. Ankit Goel, the moderator, and my son, CA Vidit Vaikunt Vansil. I am on a mobile and I'm traveling, therefore I want to see only these people whom I'm acknowledging. So my salutations to all who are there, including CA Ajit Tiwari, who's the secretary, Hina ji, Chanda ji, and all officials and people who are broadcasting this program. Ladies and gentlemen, we chartered accountants need to understand one thing very clearly, that it is ultimately our hard work, our indulgence, our proper involvement that would create wonders for us. The times will change, the laws will change. You'll find certain people in the ecosystem trying to root up us out, but we have always been there with renewed vigor and system. I'm reminded of a couplet which says, and which is true for us, उम्र थका नहीं सकती, ठोकरें गिरा नहीं सकती. उम्र थका नहीं सकती, ठोकरें गिरा नहीं सकती. अगर जीतने की जिद हो तो परिस्थितियां हरा नहीं सकती. I am told that practice is in difficult phase. I agree, but that is a stepping stone to create larger, greener pastures for us. Outsourcing has come as a great savior. Technology, where we use everything, including blockchains, including robotics, including artificial intelligence, including data analytics, Internet of Things, cloud computing, to create a venture which is acceptable to the entire world. You'll be happy to know that now India is the back office of the entire world, and Gurgaon has been adjudged as the best outsourcing destination all across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, the role of chartered accountants can never be undermined. We have to very consistently understand the more you venture into non-attest, non-audit, the better compensation you shall receive. The first speaker of the day, C. Ankit Goel, I know him very well. Mr. Goel has been putting his entire matter, his entire, you can say, niche thought process into IBC. And IBC has not even given him great compensations. It has given him recognition in terms of his character and credence. He has been helping so many clients across. We also need to step in with your traditional practice. You need to have at least one non-traditional area where you can steer out of all the confusion which you may carry during the discharge of your official duties. The second speaker of the day, my younger brother, Devinder Singh, he has lived GST. He has drunk GST. Even today, he eats GST. In the morning, he gets up and starts studying on GST. When you have the passion to get involved and update your technical skills, hone your technical skills, nobody in this world can put you down, because we are a community of friends. CAs are essentially a community of friends. And I want to tell you that our community of friends would always ensure that all of us work in one line. If I have to speak about chartered accountants, then I would only just use one couplet which says, काबिल दोस्तों का होना शायद तकदीर होती है. काबिल दोस्तों का होना शायद तकदीर होती है. बहुत कम लोगों के हाथों में ये लकीर होती है. We are a class, and we are a class apart when it comes to the entire world. Our technical knowledge, our thought process, our indulgence will always mark a different playground for us. Not taking much of your time, ladies and gentlemen, I want to again re-emphasize on the fact that our intelligence, our involvement will ensure that we have the best of the services given to our clients and we are adequately paid for that. Please remain to your ethical standards. Ethics is very, very important. And certain provisions of ethics which were propounded on 1st July 2020 needs to be thoroughly implicated in all your work attitudes. All assignments should carry these, and we need to always understand that the world looks upon to us as ethical accountants. At the last figure, I would like to say, other than technology and outsourcing, you can focus on internal audit, of whom I am the chapter. I am the chairman. This 20th, we have a program with Chicago chapter. And forensic audit again is a great area, and you can always do certain support services. Support services are also very important. Young chartered accountants who feel that forensic they want to learn, they could go for data mining, they could go for cloning services, so that at the inception of their career, they are introduced to the great exciting world of professional exuberance. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to say at the end that we have a very exciting path ahead. And that excitement, that translation of our hard work into professional work shall only happen when we all jointly get together and start understanding that the areas where we do not specialize are ultimately shared with our fellow chartered accountants. We work in tandem to ensure that our hard work doesn't go waste. Our training, which we did over a year of 3 years, our post-qualification courses where you have spent so much time, is ultimately translated into professional opportunities. I want to tell you that professional opportunities are abundant. There is no dearth of professional opportunities, but we need to focus the nail on which we want to hit the hammer. You can't do marketing, you can't do a thought process, and you can't work on areas in a very defined manner. You have to work in sync with the market forces. You have to look at the international websites of top companies as well as top international institutes where you see that new areas that are coming. World has become a global village. I'm sitting in Kharar, and I want to tell you that Kharar can do outsourcing, Kharar can do GST work of any client across the country. Now, place is not an area. The most important thing today is your understanding what you have to deliver. Deliverable is the most important part of our life. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank the committee, and I want to remind you that we are passionately involved in doing programs of your interest, of your concern. So please write to us in case you want us to cover a specific program. I promise that you will have best of the faculties across the globe. Any area where you want to venture into, we'll see that we feed you with best of the people who could guide you and take you through the greatest pinnacle of success. Let's all pray that the flag of our great institute, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, flies at unprecedented heights and we remain at the top. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nanda sir. Your couplets and your words of wisdom in every VCM, they are very much important. And sir, the way you told that the world is a global village and we have to, improve ourselves to earn a better living is, sir, remarkable. Thanks a lot, Nanda sir. Moving ahead, I would like to introduce our learned speaker, CA Ankit Goyal ji. CA Ankit Goyal ji is a fellow member of ICAI and law graduate. He is a registered valuer since 2018. He is a regular speaker for insolvency, valuation, restructuring, and forensic audit subjects at various firms, including ICAI, ICAI, ESCOHM, IOV, ICMA, ROV. He is engaged in administrating the various tasks and insolvency processes. He keeps updated knowledge of the IBC law and regularly provides consultation to the operational and financial creditors. Welcome, Ankit sir. Over to you, sir, for your deliberation.
Thank you, Vidit ji. Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you, Kamisha Soni ji, chairperson of the CPE committee. Thank you, co-chairman, Sir Charanjot ji. Thank you, Sonia Arora ji, for hosting this very, very important webinar on these very, very special subjects that you have chosen. I would like to say before I start that Charanjotji's words are always very, very valuable. And I have been listening to you before I became a chartered accountant, and I have always seen him having full zeal and guiding the professional members on how to proceed forward. And I think that is something that is a value that we all need to inculcate. That yes, challenges and all the difficulties might come in the practice that we are doing right now, but the idea is to evolve oneself to meet the technology changes, to meet the changes in the atmosphere, and take things forward. And thank you, Gigi. Thank you, others who have been part of this organizing this very, very important webinar. I will share my screen, and I will request all of you to keep posting the questions that come to your minds as we go slide by slide. And we will try and take questions as we speak. So maybe the first Q&A we can take at in about 25 minutes, and then so on, so that we have a more interactive and a more thorough session, with the objective that all the members who are attending this program should understand and should capture briefly, and then maybe look into more details at a later time, the opportunities that are available to them, not by becoming insolvency professionals, by remaining chartered accountants, and then working around the IBC code for their existing clients or for new clients. Of course, there are a host of opportunities in becoming an insolvency professional, but I will leave that to a later date, because of paucity of time. We will discuss what are the opportunities for chartered accountants around the IBC process. We will focus on that. I will briefly, of course, touch base upon the IBC process, and I will give you a brief idea about what that process is for those who are not acquainted with IBC for the time being. So what is the objective of IBC? The objective of IBC is it is an effort to improve the ease of doing business in India. It is an effort to promote entrepreneurship, improve the availability of credit at low markup. So these are all objectives that are also stated in the preamble to IBC. So what is insolvency and bankruptcy at the end of the day? So the idea is that if somebody does a business, let's assume a corporate, and that corporate at some point in time understands that, no, I have made some losses, or maybe I have made some bad decisions in my corporate life or in this company, in this business, and I will like to today I am in debt, wherein I have more amounts to be paid to people as compared to the assets that I have, or I'm not able to pay those people within the timelines that have been agreed with them. And that is the scenario in which the IBC can kick in, can come in and try and rescue the business from the creditors, because the creditors are not stopped. Then they can litigate, they can put the company into into a atmosphere where there is no other option for the company but to die and liquidate, and maybe die over time. But the business and all the good things that have been created, good assets that have been created in that company, will perhaps be sold on a piecemeal basis and finished off. So to prevent that, the company is given a guard. That guard is what prevents the creditors to maybe come attack as vultures on the assets of the company and take everything and take whatever they can get hold of away. So that is what is prevented. What is then allowed for? The idea is that today, or before IBC came in, there was no exit mechanism for a business that has failed. So in case I am a promoter of a company which has failed today, which is not able to pay its creditors, I would have had no other option but to drag that company forward and just manage the show, maybe cheat people, borrow from somebody else to repay somebody else, and that's what I would do. But with this law coming in, there is a system wherein I can let the company go. And yes, whatever is left off in the company, that can be taken care of. Of course, there are transaction audits, there are systems in place which should say that no, the promoter has not siphoned off funds and all that. We will briefly talk about that. The idea is then to maximize the value of asset. So the law is structured in such a manner that whenever the company starts defaulting on its liabilities, somebody will raise a red flag, somebody will go to NCLT, make an application. This company has this much owed to me and it is not paying it to me. And at that point in time, there might be a possibility that the company goes into the process of insolvency at an earlier time as compared to otherwise, and because of which there can be more assets that can be saved. This is a brief about the number of cases that came in. So March 17, December 16 is when the IBC came around. It was announced. It was notified. Initial few applications were made. 18, there were about 700 cases that were that entered the insolvency process. It then in March 19, it was about 1100 cases. Then in 20, it was a whopping approximately 2000 cases that came in that year. 21, again, there were about 500 cases that came in into CIRP. These numbers are important because you should understand the market that you're looking at. But the companies that have entered insolvency have been fluctuating. And with the law changing that one has to have a 1 crore rupee default to take the company into insolvency, in that process, it becomes important for us to understand that the number of cases will remain about 300 every quarter. That is the approximation that the IBBI is doing. Also, a big number of cases that came in the first few phases were basically there because there was a lot of backlog. There were companies which are not doing well for the last many years, and all of them have come here. But with IBC coming in, a lot of companies, way more, a very big number as compared to what you are seeing as 4376 up to March 21, have also been able to resolve their issues, resolve their debt, sell properties, reduce their debt, make it manageable, settle disputes with their creditors, which is that number is not something that can be discovered, that can be found out. But the fear of IBC has also led to that. And sometimes it is believed that a law can always be there to not be used. So the fear of that law being there is then causing other people to resolve issues, settle debts, make sure that there are no disputes there which lead to the company going into insolvency. This is what has typically happened to the CIRP cases. About 48% have gone into liquidation. Many have been appealed, reviewed, or settled. Some have been withdrawn under Section 12A. 12A was a section that was introduced at a later time after the IBC introduction, which allowed 90% of the creditors to vote and say that, okay, let us take the company back from CIRP because the dues are settled, or from the applicant before the COC, first COC happens. Approval of the resolution plan has also happened in 13% cases where the company has found a resolution plan which has been voted, accepted by the creditors, and the company in a way still works beyond the due dates, beyond the liquidation, and it had kind of been recalled from liquidation. This is the kind of a table which was published as part of the IBBI newsletter, quarterly newsletter. It talks about how these are the cases that are that have been part of various industries. So people with specialized knowledge in a specific industry can always look at this. Then we look at the people who have taken the companies into insolvency, and you will see that yes, the number has been rising for financial creditors and operational creditors. Very few applications that come in through the CD, and you can find that on this chart. Then we come to why one should, what is expected out of the IP. Now, I think we will quickly discuss about this so that, we have an idea about what it entails to become an IP, but we'll quickly move to the part where we're talking about CAs who are practicing as chartered accountants and who are in the fields of non-IPs to kind of work with IPs and take things forward there. So an IP, of course, has to be honest, has to have communication skills. So a lot of work happens with the IP, and a lot of work that, practically speaking, happens is about managing the people, including managing the COC, communication with all the stakeholders, making everyone understand that, yes, this is the pie that has been left. And this is the pie which has been left, which needs to be shared with all these people based on the laws and regulations of IBC. That is the core object that happens. And of course, you're doing marketing, you're kind of looking for a person who can save the company, bring a resolution plan, constantly evaluating the assets, securing the assets, safeguarding the assets. And then, of course, you are at the same time looking into a possibility of creating value, the maximum possible value out of whatever has been left that has been handed over to you. So that is what is most important, and that involves many steps, many processes. A lot of regulatory requirements need to be complied with at IBBI. All that is there. Of course, it takes about one can be a chartered accountant, and one can, if as a CA he has 10 years post qualification experience, he can become an insolvency professional. One has to first pass an examination, then appear for a 50-hour pre-registration course, and then that person can become an IP. Once once a chartered accountant has become IP, he can then apply for an authorization for assignment, that is called AFA, from IBBI, and then subsequently he can take take a case as an IP. Getting a case as an IP from a bank, from a financial creditor, from an operational creditor is one way of getting a case. The other way of getting a case is through a system where NCLT automatically allots you a case which has come up for hearing before them. And the idea is to have some experience. The more experience you have with respect to the industry, with respect to the cases, the more work perhaps somebody will be able to give to you. Another requirement frequently seen is that many people also look at IPs and say that, okay, what is the infrastructure that is available with you? Do you have the support of an insolvency professional entity or some other organization which can help you with processing the insolvency for the company? And that is also something that normally people ask for. Then there should be a minimum CIBIL score and so on. So all those things are important for somebody to become an insolvency professional. Of course, there are other ways to becoming an insolvency professional. Somebody who has just graduated, just become a CA, can go for a 27-month full-time graduation insolvency program, which can then make you an IP sooner than the 10 years which you would otherwise wait for as a chartered accountant. Then we'll quickly skip this. I will just tell you what are the processes that are involved in the insolvency process. There is a process of appointing the interim resolution professional. There is a process to then either confirm the same interim resolution professional as a resolution professional after the first month, or appoint somebody else. Then there's a process of appointing a liquidator wherever a resolution has not been found. Then, of course, we look at the being a representative of the creditor in committee of creditors, then all that. Voluntary liquidation is a process in IBC where you can strike off a company which is a solvent company and take it and do a voluntary liquidation of that through the NCLT. Then resolution professional for individuals, partnerships, and proprietorship firms. The law is out open for insolvency of corporate guarantors, corporate individuals who are guarantors to corporate persons. And that's where the law has been opened up for individual bankruptcy and individual insolvency. That's something one can go for. Then promoting an insolvency professional entity is, of course, something you can do. Then there is a new process which has been launched recently, which is called Prepackaged Insolvency Resolution Plan, Insolvency Resolution Process. And resolution professional for PPIRP, for consultancy role with the CD, for pre-appointment role, for post-appointment role, they're all very attractive ideas that can be taken forward. And the good part is that a lot of work in a PPIRP or a pre-packaged insolvency resolution process is to be done by the person who is giving the consultancy to the company before the start of the PIRP, because a lot of preparatory work needs to be done. A lot of things need to be negotiated, talked about with the bank also. This is where a lot of work can be done by a chartered accountant as a consultant, even if the person is not an insolvency professional. Then, of course, this is what we said. The interim resolution professional has these duties. He has to keep the company as a going concern. He has to understand the financial position of the corporate debtor and so on. So these are all duties of the interim resolution professional. But as I said, we will focus on the part where we talk about opportunities for professionals. So when we look at the number of IPs we see that the total number of IPs registered with IBBI is about 3,500. This was in March. And then out of these, only 2,500 are holding an AFA. So those who are not holding an AFA, that means that they're not interested in taking more cases right now beyond whatever have been given to them, or they are not permitted to do that. It can be either of the two. So the idea is that, yes, this is a very, very small family, the IP family, and it is also a lot of work to get into. A lot of compliances need to be followed. So recently there has been a clarification from IBBI on the kind of penalties that can be imposed or that need to be imposed by the regulatory bodies which are working as IPAs within the framework. And those penalties are hefty. And therefore, the idea is that one has to be very, very careful as an insolvency professional to complete all the processes that are required to be done in the IBC process. This is a geographical distribution. I will share the slides with you, and maybe the video will be available to all of you. You can always look at opportunities which are available in your own state with respect to how many people are working in your state as IPs. And yes, wherever there is maybe lesser IPs, maybe there are more opportunities available for you to take up a case and take it forward. Age-wise, of course, more than 70, the IBBI does not allow somebody to get an AFA. But yes, if you see the numbers, you will see a lot of people are IPs within the age bracket of 40 to 50, 50 to 60, and 60 to 70. And yes, less than 40 strength is a little low, but I'm sure young chartered accountants who have completed 10 years of their career as a chartered accountant will be filling this gap and adding more people here. So I think that will happen over time, and let's hope for that. Then we look at voluntary winding up. So here there is an opportunity for almost all the professionals. In case you are managing companies where the company is no longer required to exist, and there is a compliance burden on the person who's handling the companies, and the companies are not assetless. The companies are having assets, and those assets are required to be disposed of or treated before the company has been liquidated or finished off. And that is where it is important for us to understand that wherever that is the scenario, there is a possibility to go for a voluntarily winding up before the NCLT, and there is a process that needs to be taken care of. You apply to the NCLT, you liquidate the assets, maybe distribute the assets to the shareholders, or sell the assets and distribute the proceeds to the shareholders, and finish off the company. So this kind of a process in a solvent company or a company which has almost no assets or little more assets than the liabilities is what this process can be completed through NCLT, through the IBC voluntary liquidation route. So that there's an opportunity for all professionals to try and capture and try to add value for the client wherever they are tired of the annual compliances that are being done. So there are many companies in our country which have been created under, just to hold a property. Now, in that case, there of course is a taxation impact whenever somebody, finishes off that company. But many cases that becomes, a viable option. Then you look at the voluntary winding ups that have happened in the country. So this is the kind of number till March 21. So a good number of 907 have been closed, and another 407 are commenced and are pending right now for adjudication. Are commenced and these are closed. Then we have a good number of resolution professionals, so can also do work for individual debtors. So you might have, some of your clients who are looking at a situation where they're not able to maybe meet their debts. Maybe they are having an issue with their corporate guarantees. So personal guarantors to corporate debtors are the only individuals who can start an insolvency or a bankruptcy process right now. So wherever somebody has given a personal guarantee, and because of that personal guarantee being outstanding or having been invoked, that person is not able to live a good life, not to hold shares, not hold assets in his own name or her name. In that process, the personal guarantors can approach the NCLT, say that, okay, this is how we want to finish our debt, and they can then be given a new life wherein all their old liabilities are finished or written off or waived by the NCLT, and then they can start a new life. So this is again an opportunity wherever you find that people are not able to create assets in their own name because of personal guarantees, then it needs to be solved this way. Then we look at bankruptcy trustee. So of course the idea is to have a system where bankruptcy trustee can be appointed. I've already discussed about that in the previous slide itself. Then you can make an IPE, means a minimum net worth of ₹1 crore. It can be an LLP company or a registered partnership, and then the sole objective should be to support the IPs. And many people have done this. About, I think today there must be about 50 to 60. There are about 83 IPEs that are there today. And of course, there are way more which are recognized and then subsequently de-recognized. But yes, there are 83 which are on March 21. Then coming to the main topic of opportunities for professionals other than insolvency professionals, let's look at the opportunities. So this first opportunity is to give support services to IPs. Now IPs have to do a lot of work, and IPs are not understood to have or required to have all the skills that are otherwise required for any person to manage a company. And the idea and the focus is that the IP should be managing the company, and he's allowed to appoint professionals for management of all other compliances. So whether it be managing GST, whether it be managing keeping the books of accounts of the company during the CRP process, giving management services to the company, doing internal audit for the operations that are going on, statutory audit of the company while the company is in a CRP process. So these are all services that IPs needs. Beyond that, many IPs will need support services like managing claims. They would need manpower which can be deputed for that purpose. They will need people who can hand over the assets or take handover of the assets from the CD or from the CD's management. Then there is advisor to corporate debtors undergoing corporate insolvency resolution process. A lot of CDs or their promoters would look for advisory services with respect to CIRP, and they will like to understand that, okay, where are they? What information are they required to give? What are they? How do they like to cooperate with the IP? How do they talk about the transactions that have happened? So there also there is a lot of scope of work. Then consultations to entities under financial stress. So basically the idea is that whenever somebody comes to you and says, I'm not able to pay my loan, I'm in heavy debt, I am I don't know what to do. So you must know at that point in time as a professional that how is IBC as an option for that person when he has a stress asset or he is running a stressed unit. And at that point in time, it is therefore important for you to understand the IBC process, or maybe have a tie-up with an insolvency professional to make sure that you're giving him the complete picture. 1 or 2 cases will be enough for you to understand that, yes, how is this required to be taken care of, and what are the pros and cons and the other issues involved in IBC. Then protection against insolvency attacks. What do you mean by insolvency attacks? The insolvency attacks means that in case your client has a creditor and the creditor is required to be paid and that creditor stands unpaid as on date, one can then try and advise the client on how the insolvency attacks can be stopped, how the insolvency attacks can be prevented. And making some entries in the books of accounts, maybe talking about whether to take TDS credit or not. There are many things, that small little things that can influence or that can have a far-reaching impact on the recovery of the business debtors and advance through IBC. And of course insolvency tax is one part, and then somebody says, यार ये पैसे नहीं दे रहा, इसके साथ तो बहुत परेशान हो गया हूँ मैं, ये customer तो जो है बहुत तंग कर रहा है. Then you should know that at what point in time can IBC be a fruitful tool for that person to pressurize the person who is the customer into paying the client. Then advisor to resolution plans, resolution applicants for taking over companies, then transaction audits or forensic audits, services of registered valuer, then consultancy under Shashakt scheme. So we'll briefly talk about all these things as we go forward. The preparation of memorandum, information memorandum is an important part where the IPs need support services. Preparing a report for business and financial operations of the business of the corporate debtor for the previous 2 years. Claim verification process that has required to be conducted during the CIRP. Evaluation of assets and liabilities as on the date of commencement of CIRP. Examination resolution plan submitted to resolution professional. Internal audit during the CIRP, then stock audit during the CIRP as RP is responsible to protect the assets, statutory audits, audit of income and expenditure of corporate debtors, all the compliances of corporate debtor during CIRP for which RP will appoint professionals. So these are all avenues where you can play a role. Then, of course, it can be as an advisor to the corporate CIRP. We can talk about strategy for dealing with the corporate insolvency resolution process, compiling all the information required by the RP, then preparation, submission, discussion of the resolution plan, advisor to corporate debtor to get the forensic transaction report conducted, identifying and evaluating reasons for financial stress of the corporate debtor, arriving at sustainable debt of the corporate debtor, and proposing a financial structure for revival. So these are all basically the advisories where the corporate debtors are undergoing corporate insolvency resolution process. So consultancy to entities under financial stress, including options and threats under IBC. In this, we talked about identifying and evaluating distressed companies for restructuring, rescue planning, developing the strategies to mitigate the risk, working out a detailed bankable financial structure, and then working out a detailed plan for restructuring, assessment of distressed assets, so on. So there is a long list, but the idea is that yes, consultations to entities which are under financial stress and discussing the options available under IBC is a huge market availability. The interesting thing that they have done in the law is that they have said that the government will come last. So in case you have financial creditors, maybe borrowings from banks, they can be repaid. Maybe there are some borrowings from creditors, operational creditors which are outstanding for services or goods, and they can be restructured. And the idea is that these options are therefore important to be understood so that you can guide the client properly. Then, of course, protection against insolvency attacks and recovery of debt with IBC. The idea is that, yes, insolvency attacks is what is the term that is being used for the people who you owe money. They may go to the insolvency court, or maybe you have a dispute with a few people. They can go to the insolvency, the NCLT, and try to drag the company into insolvency. And that threat, when it becomes realistic, becomes very, very difficult to negotiate. So, working with that threat, maybe wherever there have been disputes, they need to be taken care of in a legally correct manner since day one. And if you leave it that, oh, that doesn't matter, I will just do some correspondence with this person and keep that with me for maybe a future inspection, maybe a future requirement, I should say, there it may not be meeting the purpose and it may fall short of that evidence that you have. Then advisor to the resolution applicants for taking over companies. So guiding clients to take over companies under IBC is also a very, very important part of IBC. So we say that, okay, whoever is saving the company, bringing in a resolution plan, maybe that person is a white knight. And white knight is a person who will perhaps come in, he will save the company, take the company's ownership or control, and then, in a way, maybe in future, that person will be able to make some value or create some value out of that asset, right? So that's possible. Then there are transaction audits or forensic audits. So of course, those who have been impaneled by IBA for forensic audits or other CA firms also can do transaction audits or forensic audits. And the idea is to try and find PUF transactions. PUFE is the abbreviation that is being used. PUF stands for preferential, then undervalued, then fraudulent, and then lastly extortionate. And this PUF transactions is what kind of then needs to be looked into, needs to be found out, needs to be investigated in the books of accounts, and therefore it is tried that there should be no hanky-panky, no modification in the accounts, nothing that has changed in the last 2 years is the breakup right now. And in case of course, that's the idea. And IBA registration, of course, is being preferred by PSPs, and complete independence in character and profile, which is not influenced by external pressure, is required. So the idea is that you should have a reputation that you are here in the long run, you are here to do a lot of work, and then yes, you can dig out things, dig out problems that are there in a case, rather than hide them under a coercion. So before I move further to opportunities as a resolution applicant, maybe I can ask that in case we have any questions, Ajit ji, we can take them up. Vidyaji, do we have any questions that we can take up, or should I proceed forward?
Just a minute. I'll just check, Ankit ji.
Yeah.
Sonia ma'am. Sir, we have just few questions that we will be taking it after the session. Yeah, I think so. You can continue right now.
Not a problem. We can do that. Thank you.
Yes.
So then there are opportunities as a registered valuer, and when a person becomes a registered valuer, who can become a registered valuer? So any CA who is having a 3 years experience can finish a 50-hour training within RVO, and then go forward and become give an exam, become a registered valuer for securities of financial assets class. And there are about 4,000. I will come to the numbers. The idea is that there are about 4,000 or 4,300 today registered values in total, out of which about 1,500, 1,600 are SFA values. And a significant number of these are, of course, registered through the ICAI RVO, which is also taking the lead here, as most CAs are becoming registered valuers as well. Currently, the registered valuer framework is required then of course there are entities also. So there are about 42 entities that are recognized now. And basically the idea is to have a framework wherein one can work in tandem with other asset classes. And this is again the track record. So you will find that most of the additions have been happening constantly across all segments, and that's something that is there. Then of course there is a region-wise breakup for you to have a look, and yes, East and maybe the North have the least valuers, but otherwise we have a good number in the South, and then subsequently the West. We have, of course, this distribution of registered values across India. But we'll quickly move into the opportunities available to RVs and how to take that forward. So the idea is that RVs are important. Today, registered values are important for Companies Act. They're important for IBC, and they're important for SEBI regulations. In the draft FEMA regulation, where earlier the idea was that a chartered accountant can do the valuation for meeting the ODI regulations, there again, I believe they are recommending now in the draft regulation the change to the registered valuer framework. And that is something that is, of course, being welcomed by registered valuers. But those chartered accountants who were signing those FEMA-related valuation certificates will now have to complete their registered valuer course to go forward with the continue signing those valuation reports. So that is something that all of you should be careful about. Eligibility to become a registered valuer, one has to be, of course, registered with IBB as a valuer, has to be a member of an RBO, and I think you can look into these details. We can talk about how to become an RB later. Let us focus on other opportunities that are available. So as I said, Companies Act, CB, IBC, then other valuations which are required in the liquidation process. Then there are certain valuations required under income tax that are continued to be taken care of by registered valuers under the Income Tax Act. And then, of course, these are the valuations required under Companies Act, which require a registered valuer certificate. And these are some details on the qualification required. Then there is a system called Sashakt scheme of RBI or consultancy, which is required by companies and institutions which are trying to do an internal restructuring of the defaulting debt. And here there is a new opportunity. So earlier the opportunity was with respect to restructuring the debt through the RBI circulars. Now, that opportunity has now extended to a process called PIRP, and we will talk about that as we proceed forward. So now the process is then to try and find out whenever identify when a corporate debtor should suo motu go to NCLT. Now this is important because when we talk about Section 10, how it empowers a company, the idea is that the corporate debtor, member or partner, individual, anyone amongst the corporate debtor can take the company to insolvency. Then, of course, the idea is that the corporate debtor should know that in some circumstances, like the ones that are stated before you on the slide, the insolvent, the company or the CD or the promoter will perhaps not be able to take their company back. And beyond that also, the experience has been that the committee of creditors, the financial creditors, the banks, PSUs, PSBs, they're all not very comfortable in giving the company back to the promoter after giving a haircut, because then everyone feels that, oh, you have given him a discount and given him a rebate on the borrowing that you had taken. So that is what needs to be looked into and needs to be taken care of. Then you have persons not eligible to be resolution applicants. So you have to make sure that your CD or your corporate debtor is not part of this list, and he is available for he is eligible to take the company back in case he wants the company back. And of course, justification for a corporate debtor going to the company law board is restructuring of the stress at the initial stage before CD becomes ineligible for submission of resolution plan. Situation can be controlled before the business is getting adverse impact by way of losing credibility or loss of customer trust, loss of human resources. Corporate debtor with too many litigations, statutory liabilities, high financial and operational debt, when he's having a good business model, can easily go to insolvency and try to get a relief over maybe some statutory liabilities, maybe some old issues that are pending in the company. So maybe the company's business is doing very good, it is all going good, hunky-dory. But then yes, the company has defaulted. There are some tax demands maybe for earlier years that have been raised on the company. Now, it is always a wise idea to then try and see in case IBC can help you with kind of not pay that demand or structure that demand in such a manner. So banks are not doing any restructuring. NPA classification has been delayed in connivance with the banks and other professionals. Then it is better that CD goes to NCLT before any other person makes an application. RBI circular dated 12 February 2018 has not taken off yet for restructuring of cases and prepackaged sale of running businesses, example of an existing case of steel company and all that. We can always talk about those examples as well. So then we talk about risk and apprehensions while taking the corporate debtor to NCLT. Then you kind of lose investor confidence, including banks, financial creditors. Sometimes you lose confidence. Promoters may lose the CD as someone else may bid higher amount for the same company. The entire process can be declared as malified, and promoters may be debarred from participating into bidding process, or CD can be put to liquidation. The forensic auditor may find some of the transactions under these sections and may become ineligible to participate in the bidding process. Then there is a case of LML where the corporate debtor itself went into insolvency process, and because of the changes in law, they were not able to take their company back, although the objective with which they filed for insolvency in NCLT themselves was to take the company back and get a after a haircut on the all the liabilities outstanding towards banks. Now let us quickly talk about PPIRP, pre-packaged insolvency resolution plan. Here the banks, the financial institutions would be interested in restructuring under this structure because of committee approach and market value approach. And the lenders will prefer this approach, as most of the times the PPIRP cost will be borne by CD. So what is the PIRP? The PIRP is a process which is available to MSMEs only. And how is this process different from CIRP? The process is different because in PIRP, the corporate debtor and the management and the promoter will continue to have control over the company. What was happening in CIRP was that the bank operations, the directors were getting suspended, the company was not able to run as a continuous entity. But in PIRP, the good idea is that whereas it is being discussed that how should the company be managed in the future, and how the company can manage its debt, how to happen, what resolution plan to come in should come in, which will resolve the issue of debt in the company. In PIRP, the promoter keeps the control. The promoter, as long as the promoter is not doing anything hanky panky, he can keep control and he can continue the operations while the creditors and the RP are trying to find a plan through which the company can survive and continue. And there, yes, maybe the highest possible value has to be given by the promoter. Otherwise, there is a Swiss challenge mechanism through which that is controlled, that somebody else can also come in and try and take over the company. And that's to prevent that, or to not let that happen, the promoter will have to give a higher amount in the resolution plan that he is able to offer. That is what we are looking at. Then the CD would also prefer this route as it is less expensive, the proper checks and balances which have been built into the process, and the CD will prefer this process to circumvent pressure of multiple applications under section 7 and 9. Opportunities for professionals under PARP. So RP will get fee from CD for the pre-appointment role also. So whenever you're doing a consultancy for a process which involves a pre-packaged insolvency resolution process, the resolution professional or the person or the professional who is advising the company for the PPIRP process can advise on how the pre-appointment role, how the company should start the process of PIRP. Then the RP will work on base resolution plan and preliminary information memorandum. Professionals other than insolvency professionals can also take up the assignment and appoint an IP after in-principle decisions are taken by FCs. Then mergers and acquisitions of those companies with some financial stress can be handled under PPIRP, and sale of business can be routed through PPIRP. So that is what we need to look at, that yes, pre-packaged insolvency resolution process is the way forward for MSMEs, and there is a lot of opportunity for professionals who understand that yes, there are maybe some MSMEs with them which are not doing well, who are under stress. They can look at this option and try to find out a relief for their clients and participate in that process as well as consultants for the client. Insolvency attacks, as I told you, the RP shall make all efforts and endeavor to protect and preserve the value of the property, and therefore the RP has all powers to manage the operations and run the business. And the CD is so basically the idea is that we need to understand that how to safeguard the corporate debtor and its assets in case IRP is appointed under IBC code. So this is something that we all need to understand, that yes, wherever there is a possibility of appointing a professional who can safeguard some asset, realize some assets for the RP, maybe an income tax refund, maybe a GST refund, maybe a VAT refund. There are a lot of opportunities available for professionals to work with the RP and try to recover all those amounts that kind of pending with somebody. Then, of course, the only safeguard is to pay or register a dispute. So you need to guide your clients that in case you have a dispute with your creditor where you're not willing to pay him, you today can't just keep that invoice in your drawer and forget about it. The idea is that the invoices that you're getting from your creditors have to be dealt with. You have to put it on record somewhere that yes, there is a dispute, there is a problem in how much amount should be paid to that creditor. And putting that on record will really safeguard your entity from any insolvency attack. Because in case you don't have a dispute on record and you get a notice from an operational creditor, then after that it is very, very difficult, or it is not allowed by the by the IBC for you to open up a dispute and challenge the payability of that invoice based on that dispute. So therefore it becomes very important to then to either settle your liabilities or settle your disputes, or dispute them, right? Then, of course, we need to understand the role of CAs under IBC and as auditors for financial stress. So the IRP is having authority to access books of accounts, records, and other relevant documents of CD available with the statutory auditors, accounts, government authorities. So as chartered accountants, as professionals, it becomes our duty to make sure that we are keeping proper audit documentation as per the standards of auditing with us, so that in case at some point in time in future, the insolvency professional or the resolution professional asks for certain documents that were supposed to be kept by us, then all those should be available with us. And punishment for falsification of books of CD, again, any person altering, falsifying any books, papers, and securities, they have to look into this. Section 147 of the Companies Act then punishes for contravention. It has a hefty penalty involved in it. NFRA is, of course, doing their job for larger companies, and any complaints are, of course, being taken care seriously by the ICAI as well as by the NFRA, wherever there have been disciplinary action requirements. Then signs of diversion of bank loan, deceiving other parties for personal gains is classified as fraud. So again, the idea is that whenever there is a bank loan, which of course is not being paid on time, there have been delays, you need to understand that those signs of check bouncings in the bank statement need to be viewed by you. And in case you're continuing signing the financial statements of that entity, make sure that you are making the required qualifications. Otherwise, there can be a possibility of an issue or of an issue. And there are many cases where the CBI has then later seen and tried to find out, okay, who was responsible for this fraud or maybe this diversion from the banks. And there, any role of the CA should not be something that should get inside the process. And of course, the auditor's standards of auditing 240 says that the auditor's responsibilities relating to fraud in an audit of financial statement puts the onus on the auditors to report the fraud with effect from 1st April 2014. And then CARO has been modified now to talk about how, the next year onwards, when you talk about financial year 21-22, all the CARO related changes need to be understood, that you need to make sure that all those are compliant by the client. Otherwise, you have to find a way out. And then, of course, the auditors have been issued notices in case of ILNFS and other such companies. Then you look at business, you look at, you need to identify as chartered accountants the various scenarios in which you should understand that yes, the business perhaps is going down, or the business is not profitable, or it is becoming increasingly risky for the business or the balance sheet or the financial statements to be signed. So one, you look at business cycle and you say the business cycle keeps increasing with higher inventory of the RM, the WIP, the finished goods, and higher credit periods extended to the credit customers. Then it means that losses are being parked in current assets to deceive the creditors and present a rosy picture. And then in a zombie company scenario, it means that you only carry the corpse and all the other things are just for the defrauding the creditors. Then trying to diversion of funds, if that is there in the system, that is also required to be looked into. It is a normal practice for many companies to simply increase the closing stock to declare a profit or to keep a profit and say that, oh, the bank needs it. We need to look into that very carefully. Not recording rejections, debit notes issued by the customers, not recording purchase bills and amount paid as being shown as advances. All these are also important. Swelling of fixed assets without corresponding increase in capacity in business. These are all indications that yes, there is a problem in the business. Quantitative records of inventory are not satisfactory or complete. Asset verification is primary duty of the auditor, and in case not verifiable, it has to be reported. Auditor's responsibility is in reporting is the same as discussed earlier. Then you look at other things. So you look at various hygienic issues. So when you look at debtors, you see that whether the settlement is happening bill to bill or not. Then you look at third party confirmation, should be necessary, should be asked for. Asset verification is primary duty of the auditor, and in case not verifiable, it has to be reported. Auditor's responsibility in reporting is the same as discussed earlier. Then evergreening. So you look at old liabilities, you say, oh, these are fund-based, non-fund-based. You see that the debt never comes down. It is there, always there. So even if the repayment is happening, month on month, the debt remains where it stood. So that means that somebody is just borrowing from some other place and then giving to somebody else, and taking it from somebody else and giving it to somebody else. So try to find out that, and that should alarm you, and you should take corrective action with respect to your responsibilities immediately. Then, of course, there are putting red flags. The idea is to giving guarded warnings to the bankers and stakeholders. And the idea is that we look at try to spot evergreening, try to look at business cycle increasing, try to talk about third-party confirmations. Physical verification of inventory or fixed assets is not allowed or not liked. Then market credit is also constantly increasing constantly. Regular capex in the same existing unit with little increase in capacity or sales stock is to be dealt with. Then taking suggestions about how to raise further loans, offers higher interest rates to friends and relatives, living beyond one's means, luxurious life, showcasing that, oh, we have a very, very high profile, whereas actually that the person is in a debt trap. All that is something that we need to look into. Then first is wanting to himself as an auditor and start detailed due diligence and comply with all auditing standards. That's the duty of every CA. Then report all facts and observations in the audit report or CARO. Then comply with RBI Master Circular dated 1st July 2015. Comply with SFA 240 and SA 240, and make sure that all the documentation with respect to audit is taken care of. And then verify the financial statements submitted to banks and other creditors and also uploaded on MCA website. Then look at availing then looking at tips that one can talk about in the current crisis. Avail professional opportunities under IBC, and if not IP, then should practice as a consultant for the benefit of clients. One should adopt the profession of registered valuers, as increasing opportunities are coming in under IBC and all the other acts for registered valuers. And multiple sources of income will reduce your dependence on auditees, and you can afford to achieve auditors' independence. And then early detection of stress and default regime. And then insolvency attacks on companies by operational creditors, workers, and government authorities need to be talked about. Then you look at forensic audit in each case under CIRP, and forensic auditors are also reporting connivance of statutory auditors in most reports. Then NFRA needs to be looked into. Then you look at sections 147 and 132 of Companies Act 2013, and make sure that you're compliant with it. Then RBI Master Data Circular, and then proper audit, due diligence, proper reporting, proper guidance to clients, and discuss the changed environment with clients. So with this, I finished my presentation. I think we have another 15 minutes to take some questions. So with it and the team, maybe we can take up some questions. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Ankit sir, Ankit Goyalji, for this wonderful and amazing, nourishing deliberation on the topic. I believe that every participant who listened to your presentation today has learned new dimensions and about the new opportunities. I would ask Gurleen GCA Gurleen ji, Secretary Jalandhar Branch, to just go on with the question answers if there are any, and also to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Vidit. First of all, good evening to all. Ankit ji, एक question आया है from CA Narayan ji. He has asked, kindly advise how to take up IBC certification. What is the duration and what are the opportunities in it?
So as an IP, I think he's saying what does it take to become an IP? So as I said, that one has to pass an examination which is conducted by IBBI through a channel of BSc and NSC. NSCIT is an entity which conducts these examinations at various cities. One can go to IBBI, look at the service provider list as an IP, insolvency professionals, and look at how the IBBI talks about the process of becoming an IP. It is a examination which primarily concentrates on IBC, also looks into the syllabus, also goes into Companies Act, other general laws. But about 60-70% of the questions come from IBC, and it requires a very thorough knowledge of IBC. So one would perhaps have to practice a lot of MCQs, and it's a paper where you have to score 60% marks, but those 60% marks are required to be scored with the idea that there is a 25% negative marking in case you have a question wrong. So that makes it a tough examination, and you have to have a high level of accuracy on questions that you're answering so that negative marking does not make you go below 60%. So that's the examination. You pass the examination, you apply for a membership to a triple IP in an IPA, and after that you complete a brief course wherein you are briefed about the IBC practical aspects by all the experienced IPs, and subsequently, yes, you're good to go. You apply for an AFA and you can start getting opportunities or assignments in your name.
Thank you so much, Ankit. That was a very apt answer and all the details in it. Even my office has a query. You have just told us that calculation of shares under Section 11 UA is not allowed to be done by a chartered accountant.
Okay.
So in some of the companies, Ankit, we find that the company directors or the shareholders are selling the shares of unlisted company. And while filing their returns, they do need a value for calculating the capital gain tax or the minimum, what is the share price in case of unlisted shares. So can a CA certify or can a CA calculate this value?
There are two parts to 11 UA. 11 UA has part sub rule 1 and sub rule 2. Sub rule 2 is specific to 56 to 7B. 56 to 7B only talks about fresh issue of shares. And there the rule 11 UA sub rule 2 says that one option is to use a book value, adjusted book value method, where you adjust the book value for whatever there is a good big long formula given there, and you use that formula, derive a value, and say that yes, if the share is being allotted at a premium but at a price at which that value is coming out to be, then there is no capital gain for the company, or there is no gain under section 56 to 7B for the company to pay tax on. The other alternative it fetches is that it asks that in case this formula is not good for you, then you can approach a merchant banker, obtain a valuation certificate from the merchant banker. Earlier, it also used to mention accountant, but that has been removed for a long time now. And the merchant banker can give a valuation under discounted cash flow method, and that method, that valuation report then can be used to say that yes, the shares have been allotted at the right value. Coming to 11 UA sub rule 1, which talks about transfer of shares. That part, there are 2-3 parts to it. Number one, it says that in case of equity shares, it mentions a formula which should be used. It talks about adjusting for the immovable properties, inserting the circle rates of those properties, and then computing an adjusted book value. And that adjusted book value can be computed by anyone. It is not required to be certified legally, but in case the client is comforted when a CA gives that book value method on a letterhead on a certified basis, then that can be given. The C part of 11 UA sub rule 1 talks about giving the valuation certificate by a CA or a merchant banker for other than equity shares. So in case you're talking about transferring preference shares or transferring some other securities, at that point in time, maybe you can, as a chartered accountant, also sign that valuation certificate. Sorry?
I am talking about transferring of equity shares only.
When you talk about equity shares, there is no requirement, statutory requirement for anyone to give a certificate on the valuation of shares. But as I said, somebody might get comforted that, okay, I can get a CA letterhead talking about computation of that value, which has been given under the formula under 11 UA subrule 1 part B.
Thank you, Ankit. That was a very apt answer, and I believe we have been looking for the confusion to this answer for a very long time, because there is a simple formula as given, as told by you. एक simple formula ही दिया हुआ है that has to be followed to take the share value, but someone has to give it, and at times we get confused whether we can give or whether we can calculate that value or not.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you need a CA also needs certain inputs there. So in case you talk about circle rate of a property, and that needs to be obtained from the market. Maybe a chartered accountant is not the perfect person to talk about that, and therefore you need some advice from other people who have that expertise to give you those values that are relevant for that formula.
with it, I guess I have all these questions only. Any other question from your side?
Just yes, there's one query from my side. Sir, I have been listening people who have been telling me that there is one more way after your graduation to become a resolution professional through being a graduate in IBC. So there are certain universities which provide a graduation course with respect to it. So for our young members, if they cannot wait for 10 years to be, give that exam.
I talked about it in my presentations also. It's called the Graduate Insolvency Program. GIP is the name of this program. One can find details on the IBBI website also. One batch of about 40 students has already passed this, where the batch started in 2020. And then it has now become, that batch has now become insolvency professionals. And they're all young graduates. There is a process through which you try and apply and get an admission in these colleges. So one is ICAI and the other is National Law University, Bangalore. These are the two institutions that are currently offering graduate insolvency program for new chartered accountants who can afford to spend 27 months of their time into full-time study, college type study. And that is the effort and the time commitment that GIP requires. It is not a correspondence course. It is a full-time classroom course. Some part of it is training, some part of it is internship, but mostly it is a classroom environment training. And both ICAI and National Law University, Bangalore are very reputed organizations who are conducting this course.
Right, sir. Thank you. Gurleenji, I think you can move ahead with the formal vote of thanks, sir.
Okay, with it. Thank you so much. And I feel honored while giving a vote of thanks to such a learned speaker, C. Ankit Goyal, sir. Today's presentation was totally on the opportunities and overview in the IBC framework. And I would love to thank Ankit, sir, because all the queries were properly resolved. Even there were not much queries also, because the presentation was very apt. The way of delivering the complete knowledge was very apt, and everything is in a very understandable form. So thank you so much, sir, for telling us so much opportunities which we never look at, and many other things which we always forego while looking into the books, or we forego to help a person who is going into some issues. So thank you so much, Ankit, sir. It was a wonderful time. I even thanks the CP committee who have especially called Ankit, sir, for this seminar. Now I would request Vidit to kindly move with the further program.
Thank you, Guliji. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this program. It was my pleasure to speak to all the participants. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ankit, sir. Thanks a lot, Gurleen, sir. Moving to the next part of our session, that is inspection, search, seizure, and GST. I would like CA Harry Sikri from Delhi to introduce CA Davinder Singh ji. Over to you, Harry.
Thank you, Vidit. So it's good evening, everyone. It's my honor to introduce Mr. CA Davinder Singh ji. So Davinder Singh is a chartered accountant who qualified this prestigious exam at the age of 23. He has also qualified insolvency professional exam in first attempt. He is also a co-opted member on the Study Circle Coordination Committee of NIRC of ICAI. He has a vast experience of close to 2 decades in the field of indirect taxation, VAT, service tax, GST. He has represented more than hundreds of cases before the tax authorities. He has also been speaker in various seminars and webinars. He has been regular speaker and consultant to many corporates. He has also been trainer in GST department and has taken many lectures before GST officials.
Thank you, Harry ji. Devinder sir, it's pleasure to have you here. You can start with your deliberation, sir.
Thank you, Vidit. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, ICAI, and thank you, everyone. And this is not about us. This is all about participants, all about attendees who have given their invaluable time. And these 90 minutes, which they have already spent, that has been wonderful. I was listening to Ankit ji. Thanks to Ankit ji also. At the same time, I would ensure that these 30 minutes would be invaluable also. Before moving to the section 67, that is inspection, search and seizure in GST, I would like to take you certain terms which will be very relevant as far as section 67 of GST is concerned. There are three terms which are used quite often in GST Act. One is registered person, taxable person, and person. These three terms are used in many sections. So before moving to section 67, we should know what these terms mean. The first term that is quite often used is registered person. In very simple terminology, a registered person is one who is having GST. One who possesses a GST number is a registered person. Moving to another term, taxable person. Taxable person means a registered person or who is liable to be registered under section 22 or 24 of CGST Act. It means we can say one who is already registered is a part of taxable person, and those who were supposed to take registration, but even if they have not taken the registration, they also fall under the ambit of term taxable person. To make it more clear, we can also say that registered person is subset of taxable person, or taxable person is superset of registered person. And the last term that is used is person. Person has got the widest meaning of these three terms: registered person, taxable person, and person. Person can be those who were not supposed to take registration at all. They still fall under the definition of person. And if we go through section 67, we shall find the term taxable person and person there. But if you go to many other sections, you will find the term registered person quite often as well. So again, prior to moving to section 67, that is inspection, search and seizure. If you follow my voice, I took a pause after speaking inspection, and then I spoke search and seizure influencing. So basically, inspection is a different term, and search and seizure are two terms which take place simultaneously. There is nothing called inspection and seizure. Inspection is different and search and seizure is different. And these terms, inspection, search, and seizure, have not been defined under GST Act. And if we go through their dictionary meanings, inspection means to look at things very carefully or to examine them. Whereas search and seizure, those are heavier terms, where not only things can be searched, they can also be seized. Their control can be taken by GST department. And under section 67, power is not restricted only to inspection. This goes beyond. Search and seizure is also covered therein. So when we read section 67, we should know that whatever proceeding is being followed against the assessee in simple terms, or taxable person or person if I talk technically. We should know whether inspection is being carried out by them or search and seizure proceeding is being carried out by them. And how do we get to know that? I will tell you in 5 minutes or so. And also, Section 67 is not new. GST Act may be new, but income tax we already know is quite old. Excise is quite old. And Code of Criminal Procedure also that was introduced in year 1973. And all these provisions of search and seizure and inspection have been borrowed from Code of Criminal Procedure. So Code of Criminal Procedure stands very important part as far as inspection, search and seizure is concerned. And there is also a term Panchnama, which I would be talking about in this session. So moving to the Section 67 itself right now. I'm sharing my screen. With it, is it visible?
Okay. Yes, sir. It's visible, okay. Sir. It's visible.
Okay.
Visible, sir.
Okay. Fine. We are moving to the Section 67. And Section 67 is very important. You might have been facing cases where your client is inspected, searched, or seizure proceedings are taken by GST officials. This has got 12 subsections. And first 3 subsections in itself, if you understand those 3 subsections, first 3 subsections, major part of Section 67 will be clear to you. Section 67 starts with the words where the proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner has reasons to believe that. Okay. Okay. Where the proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner has reasons to believe that. First thing, keep in your mind that Section 67 subsection 1 pertains to inspection. It does not pertain to search and seizure. I will tell you how. Which word is making me say that this belongs to inspection and not search and seizure? I will tell you later on. First thing, where the proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner has reasons to believe that a taxable person has suppressed any transaction relating to supply of goods, relating to stock of goods in hand, or has claimed ITC in excess of his entitlement, or has indulged in contravention of any of the rules or act made thereunder to evade tax under this act. I'm reading clause A again. A taxable person has suppressed. Coming to the definition of taxable person again, which I talked earlier, it means not only a registered person is covered whose inspection can take place, but also those persons who were supposed to take registration, but they have not taken the registration. Their inspection can also take place in 4 circumstances. Where they have suppressed any transaction relating to supply of goods or services, relating to stock of goods in hand, they have suppressed any transaction which relates to stock of goods in hand, or they have claimed ITC in excess of their entitlement, or they have indulged in contravention of any of the provision of act or rules to evade tax under this act. These words are also very important, to evade tax under this act. It means they should not have suppressed transaction out of these given 4, but that transaction should amount to evasion of tax also. If I give you an example that under GST Act, we are supposed to display our GST registration certificate out of our outside of our business premises. But suppose a registered person has not done that. He has not displayed his registration certificate outside his business premises. Can this be said that this has been done to evade tax under this act? No, it cannot be said. There is a contravention of act that he was supposed to display his RC outside his business premises, but this has not been done to evade tax under this act. So this example will not fall into the category of inspection. So not only out of these 4 transactions should be there, those should have been done to evade tax under this act. Their place can be inspected. Because if we go through the bottom part, he may authorize in writing any other officer of central tax to inspect. That is why I said earlier that this section 67 subsection 1 belongs to inspection. And that meaning got justified with the word inspect. He may authorize in writing any other officer of central tax. He means proper officer not below the rank of joint commissioner. It means joint commissioner or above the rank of joint commissioner. He may authorize in writing any other officer to inspect any place of business of taxable person if out of those 4 circumstances which relate to supply of goods or services or both, relates to stock of goods in hand, has claimed ITC in entitlement in excess of his entitlement, or has indulged in contravention of rules or act to evade tax. Taxable person's place can be inspected. We read the second part. If we read the second part, clause B of section 67 subsection 1, this starts with the words any person. So now you see the wider scope. Registered person has got the minimum scope. Taxable person is wider than registered person, and person has got the widest meaning. Any person engaged in the business of transporting goods, or an owner or operator of a warehouse or a godam or any other place is keeping goods which have escaped payment of tax, or has kept his accounts or goods in such a manner as is likely to cause evasion of tax payable under this act. We differentiate between the 2 clauses. Clause A related to taxable person. If I give you an example and assume that name of taxable person is Mr. A, then clause A is talking about Mr. A only. Mr. A has suppressed any transaction relating to supply of goods or services or both. Mr. A has suppressed any transaction which relates to stock of goods in hand, or Mr. A has claimed input tax credit in excess of his entitlement, or Mr. A has indulged in contravention of any of the provisions of act or rules to evade tax. It means Mr. A is the accused and Mr. A's place can be inspected. But when we go through clause B, now this goes beyond Mr. A. This talks about any person. So now in case of Mr. A, not only Mr. A's place can be inspected, but who is transporting goods on behalf of Mr. A, or who is the owner or operator of warehouse or godam, who is keeping goods of Mr. A, which have escaped payment of tax or has kept his accounts in such a manner as is likely to cause. We see the second difference. If we see clause A, it talks about 4 conditions, but all 4 conditions pertain to past. They pertain to past. But if we refer to clause B, it not only pertains to past, it pertains to future as well. And why am I saying it pertains to future as well? Because the words, those are there in clause B, are as is likely to cause. So even if tax evasion has not happened, But in the views of Joint Commissioner, he has reasons to believe that tax evasion may happen. He may also cause inspection of Mr. B. One more thing is there. Is Mr. B supposed to keep accounts for Mr. A? Mr. B will prepare accounts of Mr. B only, not of Mr. A. But he has to maintain accounts related to consignor or consignee that these goods belong to Mr. A, and he has to keep their accounts separate, so that if any inspection takes place of his business premises, he should clearly distinguish that these goods belong to Mr. A. And he is also under an obligation to keep his accounts in such a way that Mr. A's goods can be differentiated or distinguished from the other person's goods. Because he might be having a common warehouse or common godown where he's not keeping goods of Mr. A, but also keeping goods of some other registered person or taxable person's good as well. And how do we get to know that he's supposed to maintain accounts related to consignor or consignee? We shall have to refer section 35 subsection 2. If we go through section 35 subsection 2, we shall get to know that every owner or operator of warehouse or godown or any other place used for the storage of goods, and every transporter, whether he is registered or not registered, shall maintain records of the consignor, consignee, and other relevant details of the goods in such manner as may be prescribed. So section 67 subsection 1 clause B, it is more or less akin to section 35 subsection 2. Section 35 subsection 2, warehouse owner, godown owner, or transporter, he is required to maintain records of consignor, consignee, and their goods. And section 67 subsection 1 clause B, that talks about that their place can be inspected. And even if that godown owner or warehouse owner or that transporter, whether they are registered or not registered, it does not make any difference. Their place can be inspected. If you all please to note down something, please note down one very important point, that whenever inspection takes place, inspection authorization is given in form INS 01. It is given in INS 01. That is the form. And if we go through the form INS 01, it has got three parts. It has got part A, which is akin to section 67 subsection 1 clause A. It talks about 4 conditions. So if INS part A is ticked, if you see the search warrant and INS part A is ticked, you may very well get to know that this is not proceeding of search and seizure, this is proceeding of inspection. And if part B is ticked, that is about any person, transporter, godown owner, warehouse owner. If part B is ticked, it means inspection in the matter of Mr. A. Inspection is being carried out in the premises of Mr. B, whereas the case that has been levied is against Mr. A. So INS 01 is very important to vouch for you, whether part A is ticked or part B is ticked. And if you see that part A or part B is ticked, even if officer is saying that they are carrying out the functions of search and seizure, Let me tell you, that is not search and seizure, that is inspection. But INS 01, it has got another part as well. That is part C. Part C is the one which pertains to search and seizure. So to summarize, INS 01, part A, inspection, part B, again inspection, and part C, that is search and seizure. One question may arise, that if none of the part is ticked by the Joint Commissioner, then this will go in the favor of taxable person. Because if Joint Commissioner is not sure that he is carrying out inspection or search, this will definitely go in the favor of taxable person. And another question may also arise, that if all the three parts are ticked, part A, part B, part C, all three are ticked, then this will also go in favor of taxable person, because inspection is different from search and seizure and both cannot take place simultaneously. And one more thing is there in this subsection. I'm telling you again that first three subsections are the soul of this section 67. And I will not be touching upon section 67 only. I will be touching upon the Code of Criminal Procedure part as well, which is relevant for inspection, search and seizure. Here the thing is that where the proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner has reasons to believe. Reasons to believe are very important words. And these have not been defined under GST Act. And in many cases, it has been decided where certain terminology has not been defined under the legislature, then we can go to the different act where it has been defined or where many case laws exist. And if we refer to the Income Tax Act, these words have been used there. Section 147 also. And many case laws pertain to reasons to believe, which define what reasons to believe are. In simple words, if I tell you that reason has to be objective and belief has to be subjective. Reason has to be objective, belief can be subjective. Now, what is objective, what is subjective? Another question arises. That can also be defined in very simple terms. Objective is something where only one view can be derived and no second view is possible. Like if I ask you what is 2 plus 2, then there is only one answer, that 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 is the only answer and no other view can be formed that 2 plus 2 can be something different. No other view can be formed. This is what we call objectivity. So reason should be objective, that reason should be such that only one view can be formed, no other view is possible to be formed. Whereas the word belief, that is subjective. It means this has been left upon a person for his personal judgment, his personal wisdom, that in his belief that these acts have been done to evade tax under this act so that inspection should take place. So reasons to believe is combination of objectivity and subjectivity, and reasons to believe are different from the words reason to suspect. Inspection, search or seizure warrant should not be issued upon the basis of where he has reason to suspect. He should have some basis. There should not be suspicion. He should have applied his mind in such a way that objectivity should be there and his subjectivity should also be there, that he can form a view that these events have been done to evade tax under this act, or goods of Mr. A are lying with Mr. B, which have escaped payment of tax or which may likely to cause evasion of tax. Then proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner may issue inspection order or search and seizure order. Because if we go through section 67 subsection 2, therein also words reasons to believe are there. One more thing that we need to see in this subsection 1. He may authorize in writing any other officer of central tax to inspect any place of the business of the taxable person. Any place of the business of the taxable person. It means whatever places of business of taxable person are, those places can be inspected. So if his residence is not the place of business of taxable person, that cannot be inspected. Now we move to the subsection 2, and later on we shall compare subsection 1 and subsection 2 again, so that we could differentiate what is inspection and what is search and seizure. Now if we move to the subsection 2, where the proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner, same words, either pursuant to an inspection carried out under subsection 1 or otherwise. I'm reading this line again. Either pursuant to an inspection or otherwise. As I told you earlier, that section 67 subsection 1 is related to inspection and 67(2) is related to search and seizure. So search and seizure can take place either pursuant to an inspection or otherwise. Or otherwise words are very important, because search and seizure can take place directly as well. That power, proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner, he gets that power on the virtue of words or otherwise. So search and seizure can take place after inspection. So it means earlier section 67 subsection 1 should be invoked, and then we should move to section 67 subsection 2, or section 67 subsection 2 can be invoked directly. There is no need for inspection if proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner, he has reasons to believe that search and seizure should take place directly. Again, what is the form for search and seizure? That form is same, which is for inspection. INS 01. If you refer form INS 01, it has got 3 parts. Part A, Part B, Part C. If Part A is ticked, it means inspection is being carried out. Part B is ticked, it means inspection is being carried out. If Part C is ticked, only then you can conclude that search and seizure power is there with proper officer. On the basis of ticking of Part A or Part B, seizure cannot take place, because that is related to inspection only, not seizure part. So this is very important for us chartered accountants to see whether inspection is being carried out or search and seizure proceedings are being carried out, and that can be seen which part is picked. Coming to 67 subsection 2 again, where the proper officer not below the rank of Joint Commissioner, either after inspection or otherwise, he has reasons to believe that any goods liable to confiscation or any documents or books or things. 4 parts are there. Any goods liable to confiscation or any documents or books or things which in his opinion shall be useful for or relevant to any proceedings under this act are secreted in any place. Are secreted in any place. He may authorize in writing any other officer of central tax to search and seize. Now you might be seeing the difference that in section 67, subsection 1, the word that was relevant was inspect, which takes me to the fact that section 67 subsection 1 pertains to inspection. And if we go through subsection 2, then the relevant words are search and seize. So 67 subsection 2 pertains to search and seizure. Where 4 things: any goods liable to confiscation, or any documents or books or things are secreted in any place. I'm emphasizing over the words in any place, because if you go through the lighter provision, that is inspection, that was related to only any place of business of the taxable person. Only that place could have been inspected. And if residence is not the place of business of taxable person, that could not have been inspected. But as far as search and seizure is concerned, it can take place anywhere, because it talks about in any place. Now residence is also covered. So we can see that search and seizure is stringent provision as compared to inspection. Their search and seizure can take place. And one more thing, search and seizure can take place, but for 4 things only: any goods liable to confiscation, or any documents or books or things. I tell you about one case law, Paresh Nathalal Chauhan, where a team went to the residence of Mr. Paresh Nathalal Chauhan. They carried out search and seizure proceedings, but they didn't come back. They stayed at his home. Mr. Paresh Nath was not available there. Paresh Nathalal Chauhan was not available there, but his family was there. His parents, his wife, and his children. They stayed there and they waited. If Paresh Nathalal Chauhan would come, they would arrest him. But we had to see that search and seizure, it is not search and seizure of a person. It relates to goods, documents, books, or things. For arrest, there are separate provisions. Section 69 read with section 132. Those are separate provisions. But section 67 gives a very limited power that search and seizure can take place, but of 4 things only. Any goods liable to confiscation, 1. Second is documents. 3rd is books. 4th is things, not person. A person cannot be seized. So Joint Commissioner can give authorization to any officer of central tax to search and seize and take possession of goods, documents, books, or things which in his opinion shall be useful for or relevant to any proceedings under this act. He may do so. One more thing that may arise, that if he wants to seize a machine, but this is not possible for proper officer to seize that machine and to bring that machine into the GST department, he may also seal that machine and ask the owner or custodian of that machine that he will not remove or part with or otherwise deal with those machine or goods except with the previous permission of such officer, if they are dealing in that machine. And if that machinery, which is for their purpose, is their goods, if they are dealing in those machinery and that is not possible, that is not practicable or possible for those officers to seize and take control of that. They may ask owner or custodian of the goods to take care of that, that the same machine should not be part away with. And there is a further provision. That provision says that provided further that documents or books or things so seized, it means for which possession has been taken by the GST officials, they shall be retained by such officer only for as long as may be necessary for their examination or for any inquiry or for proceedings under this act. So if we differentiate the 4 terms into 2 parts, there were 4 terms: any goods liable to confiscation, documents, books or things. If we differentiate these 4 terms, goods liable to confiscation, we keep it into part A, and documents, books or things, we keep them into second part, part B. Part A can be seized for limited period. That limited period is 6 months. And that period can also be extended for a further period of 6 months. So at the most, it can go up to 12 months. Whereas documents, books or things, there is no period defined. Simply said that these will be kept, these will be retained by proper officer as long as necessary for them. Because these are very important subsections, subsection 1 and subsection 2. Before moving ahead, I would like to draw difference between the two, if you wish to note it down. 67.1 that talks about inspection, 67.2 that talks about search and seizure. 67.1 only place of business of taxable person can be inspected, whereas search and seizure can take place at any place. 67.1 things can be inspected, but they cannot be seized. 67.2 goods, documents, books or things, they can also be seized. Goods will be kept for 6 months plus 6 months. Those can be kept, whereas documents, books or things, no period is defined. Those can be kept as long as, in the opinion of such officer, those are necessary. There is no period defined. If we go through subsection 3, and if we read that the documents, books or things which have not been relied upon for the issue of notice under this act, they will be returned to such person within a period not exceeding 30 days of the issue of the said notice. Earlier I said that these will be kept as long as necessary for them, whereas subsection 3 says that these will be returned within a period of 30 days. Let me tell you what is the difference. 67 subsection 3 says those books, documents or things for which notice has not been relied upon to issue. It means if notice had been issued on certain points, let us say point 1 and point 2, and books, documents are things, they have been seized on the basis of those points, point 1 or point 2. They can be kept as long as necessary. But if notice had been issued on points 1 and point 2, but when proper officer went there and they found something in addition to point 1 and point 2, let us say they found that certain points which need examination or search and seizure are point 3, point 4, point 5. Those are separate points. But notice has been issued on points 1 and point 2, whereas they found something point 3, point 4, point 5, and on the basis of those points, they seized documents, books or things. In that case, they will have to return documents, books or things within a period of 30 days of issue of that notice. Whereas in case of goods, there is no such condition. Those goods can be kept for 6 months, or if extension is sought, then 6 months plus 6 months up to a period of 12 months. Now, if we go to the Code of Criminal Procedure part, where taxable person or person is not giving entry to the GST officers, is not giving entry to the GST officer. They are denying them in performing their duties. Then GST officers can take help of police as well. And police will help them to seal or break open the door of any premises, or to break open any almirah, electronic devices, box, receptacle in which goods, accounts, registers, or documents are suspected to be concealed. Herein, Code of Criminal Procedure comes into play, where they are being denied to perform their duties. Then GST officers can take the help of police as well. And they can take help of police with his also this power is given to them under section 72 as well of GST Act. If any friendly entry is being denied to them, then they can take help of police, and police will help them to seal or break open the door. But let me tell you another thing, that police officials are not supposed to go inside. They can help GST officials to break open the door, but they have to stay outside. This is also written in Code of Criminal Procedure. Police cannot go inside, and they can take help of police as per section 72. One more thing which I would like to tell you, that if residence of a taxable person is being searched and seized, then a lady officer is must to accompany them in their team. A female officer is must if residence of a taxable person is being searched. This is also written in Code of Criminal Procedure. Because earlier I said that this section 67, the procedural part, has been borrowed from Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. And when search and seizure takes place or inspection takes place, one thing which is also required to be done by GST officials, that they have to offer themselves to be available for their own search. First, they will offer themselves that taxable person can search them, they can check them, that whatever things those are already bringing with them, those GST officials. And when search will be over, they will again offer themselves for their own search, that they have not picked anything from the place of taxable person. Whatever is being recorded in seizure form, that is okay. They can take those things, whatever has been recorded in seizure form. But other than that, for which seizure order has been issued, other than that, they cannot take anything along with them. That is why at the time of their entry and at the time of their exit, they have to offer themselves for their own search. And to maintain independence, if you see, there are two parties. One is GST team and one is the taxable person. Taxable person would always say that I am correct. GST team would always defend them that they are correct. So there has to be independence as well. That is why the concept of Panchnama is there. Panchnama is the report of independent witnesses. And as the name suggests, Panchnama, Panch means panch. Panch means 5. It means earlier there had to be 5 independent witnesses, but later on it was found that arranging or asking for 5 people is not easy. So number of independent witnesses were brought down to 2. Nowadays, 2 independent witnesses, those constitute, and their report is called Panchnama. And when I talked about that GST officials will offer themselves for their own search, not only they, but Panchnama person, they would also offer themselves for their search. Not only at the time of when search is being initiated, but after search has concluded, they will have to offer themselves again that their search can take place. Another aspect which is very relevant for this practical aspect of inspection, search and seizure, that as soon as Panchnama report is made, after that search team will have to leave the premises. They cannot carry on search after Panchnama report has been concluded. Because if Panchnama report is concluded, it means the work of independent witnesses is over. And if independent witness work is over, after that, nothing can take place. So this should be the last thing which should be done by the inspection, search and seizure team. So if Panchnama is prepared, that has been signed by 2 independent witnesses, then search and seizure team will have to leave just after that. And all these points which I talked about, they have been borrowed from Code of Criminal Procedure, but there is also certain guidelines which have been issued by CBIC. If I show you those, these guidelines were issued on 2nd February 2021. Instructions and guidelines issued by CBIC. Whatever I told you that Panchnama, they will have to offer themselves for their own search. Lady officer is must where a residence is being searched. 2 independent witnesses are compulsory. And as soon as Panchnama report is prepared and finalized and signed by 2 independent witnesses, search team has to leave just after that. I will be sharing my PPT with you, but if you Google it down, you will also find that search guidelines issued by CBIC dated 2nd February 2021. All these points are written there, and all these points have been borrowed from Code of Criminal Procedure. So now if we go to the subsection 4, that was related to use of police. Section 72, they can take help of police, and police will help them to seal or break open the door of any premises if they are being denied to perform their duty. Subsection 5, where any books or documents or things, if they are being seized by GST officials, then the person from whom custody these are being seized, he will be allowed to take photocopies thereof. He will be allowed to make copies thereof or take photocopies thereof in the presence of GST official. But if GST official feels that such copy or extracts or photocopy should not be allowed to that person, he may also do so. He has got power of that, but he should have opinion. He should form an opinion for that how it would prejudicially affect the investigation. In general sense, the person from whom any documents are being seized, he will be allowed to make copies or extracts thereof. Subsection 6, the goods, those can also be seized, but they will also be released on provisional basis if bond or security is also furnished by that person, or that person makes payment of applicable tax, interest and penalty as the case may be. And these provisional basis where goods are released, that is done in form INS 04. And if we talk about that bond and security, those are to be furnished. That bond is a piece of paper where person is giving surety to President of India that later on, if any tax, interest or penalty arises, that bond can be encashed, and I'm giving you bond for that. But as far as security is concerned, then he will have to offer either a fixed deposit or a bank guarantee. And this will be equal to the tax amount of those goods. So if I say those goods are valued at ₹100 and tax rate is 18, total 118, for 100 rupees part, a bond can be furnished, and for 18 rupees, that tax component, for that a security will be furnished by person who wants those goods to be released on provisional basis. This is subsection 6. And subsection 7, which I told you earlier, where any goods are seized, those will be returned after 6 months, and those 6 months can also be extended by a further period of another 6 months. So maximum it can go up to 12 months. This is subsection 7. And subsection 8, where government feels that any goods are perishable or hazardous, they can also dispose of those goods by virtue of subsection 8. And what are those perishable or hazardous nature of any goods? Those have been given under notification 27/2018 of Central Tax. Where goods are of perishable nature or hazardous nature, government may also dispose of those goods, and those goods have been defined under notification 27/2018 of Central Tax. And where any goods are seized, whether those are of perishable nature or otherwise, proper officer will make an inventory of those. As is obvious, if any goods are being seized, then inventory of those goods will be prepared, and the copy of the same will be provided to that taxable person or person, as the case may be. That these are the goods which are being seized by the GST officials. And if we move to the subsection 10, as I have told you umpteen number of times, that all these provisions have been borrowed from Code of Criminal Procedure. Under Code of Criminal Procedure, search warrant power is given by magistrate or subdivisional magistrate or magistrate of first class. Herein, when report is submitted to the Joint Commissioner, but for the purpose of equating magistrate, as is there in Code of Criminal Procedure, Commissioner has been equated to magistrate. Commissioner of Central Tax, Commissioner of CGST, he has been equated with magistrate as far as section 165 of Code of Criminal Procedure, so that a parity can be maintained, because then Commissioner's word, if Commissioner says anything, it will be presumed as if the same has been said by magistrate. As far as that Code of Criminal Procedure or section 165 of Code of Criminal Procedure is concerned. That all the provisions, whether those are section 47, I'm talking about sections of Code of Criminal Procedure, section 47 or section 93 to section 100 or section 153, section 161 or 165. All those sections, more or less, as it is applying in these provisions. And these provisions are not new. This inspection, search and seizure is also being carried out under Income Tax Act or excise or any other provision. This is being done earlier. Same provisions have been copied pasted under GST. Subsection 11, where any accounts, register or documents are produced in front of GST officer, and if GST officer assumes that such documents are necessary for any proceeding, he may keep those accounts, registers or documents and may provide a receipt for the same. This is subsection 11. And subsection 12, the last subsection of section 67, that if GST official want to check if a company or if a shop or if a taxable person is issuing invoice or not issuing invoice, they may send a decoy customer to the shop of that taxable person and may cause that decoy customer to buy something, to check if the taxable person is issuing invoice or not issuing invoice. If the taxable person is issuing tax invoice or bill of supply, as the case may be, or he is not issuing tax invoice or bill of supply. To check that, they may send a decoy customer. And later on, when inspection or search and seizure takes place, they may tell that taxable person, see, this decoy customer was sent by us. We had sent that decoy customer to your place to buy something. He bought only for the limited purpose to check whether you issue tax invoice or bill of supply or not. To check whether that taxable person is issuing tax invoice or bill of supply or not. They send a decoy customer, and later on, when those goods are returned, then the taxable person shall return the amount, as is obvious, because the intent of the department is not to buy the goods just to check whether tax invoice or bill of supply was being issued by them or not. But section 67 subsection 12 says that taxable person shall refund the amount so paid towards the goods after cancelling any tax invoice or bill of supply issued early. Whereas in my opinion, once a tax invoice or bill of supply has been issued, it cannot be cancelled. In my opinion, these words are not correct. In my opinion, these words should have been after issuing debit note or credit note, as the case may be, issued early. Because one party issues debit note, another party issues credit note. If we have to match those, this should have been done on the basis of debit note or credit note, not on the basis of cancelling any tax invoice. Because under GST provisions, if a tax invoice has been issued or bill of supply has been issued, it cannot be cancelled. This is subsection 12. And more or less, we are complete with this section 67. Now I will take you to the various situations, various case laws, which will help us understand this section 67 to even in better way. That if cash is, can money found at the time of search be seized by the search team? Can cash or money found at the time of search be seized by the search team? This is a question. I told you that there are 4 things. Any goods liable for confiscation, documents, books, or things. Only these 4 can be seized as far as section 67 subsection 2 is concerned. So we have to see that if any cash has been found at the premises of taxable person or person, is that a good that can be seized? No, it is not a good which can be seized. Is cash a document that can be seized? Cash is not a document which can be seized. Is it books of accounts? No, this is also not a books of accounts. And the last thing that comes to mind, is cash a thing which can be seized? Well, if this question is there, is cash a thing which can be seized? Let me tell you, there has been a case law, Kanishka Mata, Madhya Pradesh High Court. In that case, Madhya Pradesh High Court held that cash is a thing and it can be seized. Cash is a thing and this can be seized. And how they arrived at that conclusion. High Court held that thing is something which can be enjoyed. Which takes me to the another question. Can cash be enjoyed? Or this is basically the use of cash by which we buy certain things and those things are enjoyed. Well, High Court held that cash is a thing which can be enjoyed, so that can be seized. So if I have to think that way, I think some people, if they count their own cash, they enjoy. So yes, cash is a thing, it can be enjoyed. If I give you another example, some people see cash in their locker, and by seeing their own cash, they get a feeling of contentment. So we can say that yes, cash can be enjoyed. And this is the view which has been taken by Madhya Pradesh High Court in the case of Kanishka Mata. Another question. Can arrest take place on the basis of search notice? Can arrest take place on the basis of search notice? Search notice means INS 01. Well, if we go to section 67 subsection 2 again, that talks about 4 things, that 4 things can be seized. And those are any goods liable to confiscation, that can be seized. Any document, it can be seized. Any books, it can be seized. And things, it can also be seized. But nowhere it talks about arrest of a person. A person cannot be seized. And in general also, a person is not seized, a person is arrested. And section 67 is not about arrest. It is about seizure of things which will be used later on to determine the tax liability. And as I told you in the case of Paresh Nathalal Chauhan, that case, Gujarat High Court, Paresh Nathalal Chauhan, Gujarat High Court. In that case, a search team came to the residence of Paresh Nathalal Chauhan ji. Paresh Nathalal Chauhan was not available there. They went to his residence on 11th October 2019. And on 11th October 2019 itself, they completed the search. Their search was completed because no search was done later on. But they did not come back. They stayed at his place. Not only on 11th October night, but on 12th October, they stayed there. On 13th October, they stayed there. On 14th October, they stayed there. On 15th October, they stayed there. On 16th October, they stayed there. On 17th October, they stayed there. And only on 18th October, they vacated the premises of that Paresh Nathalal Chauhan, who was not available there. But his family was available. His mother, father, his wife, his daughter, and his son. So they were anticipating that Paresh Nathalal Chauhan would come back to his residence and they would arrest him. High Court took very strict cognizance of this. That under 67, your power is restricted to search and seizure, and those are 4 things: goods, books, documents, things, not person. So don't go beyond your powers. Those have been conferred to you under section 67. And they also warned GST officials that one immunity has been given to you under section 157 subsection 2, that no suit or no case law will lie against you if you have acted in good faith. If GST officials, GST officers have acted in good faith, then no case or no suit, no proceeding will lie against them. But High Court said that if you do like this, then this immunity that has been given to you under section 157 subsection 2, the same will be withdrawn. And you can also be booked if you go beyond your authority. So if I come to the question again, can arrest take place on the basis of search notice? The answer is no. Arrest of a person cannot take place on the basis of search warrant or search notice. Arrest can take place on the basis of arrest warrant, which is issued under section 69, not under section 67. One more thing which may be very interesting for you to know, that can business office of CA be inspected by GST team? I give you an example. Suppose Mr. A's case is being investigated, and for that purpose, Mr. X, who is chartered accountant of Mr. A, can his business office be also inspected? Inspected means under section 67 subsection 1. Can his business office be inspected by GST team? We go to the section 67 subsection 1 again. Let us see what the provision says. It says, if we go to the bottom part, he may authorize in writing any other officer of central tax to inspect any place of business of the taxable person. Any place of business of taxable person. So one question that comes to our mind, that is CA office place of business of taxable person? If this question is there, it's CA office. Is that CA office place of business of taxable person? Now we go to the definition of what constitutes place of business of taxable person. And we see if CA office is covered or not covered therein. As per section 2, clause 85 of CGST Act, place of business includes, we are ignoring the first part, we are reading the second part. A place where a taxable person maintains his books of account. Place of business includes a place where a taxable person maintains his books of account. So if his books of accounts are being maintained at CA office, then CA office would become place of business of taxable person as per section 2 clause 85 of CGST Act. So if CA office becomes place of business of taxable person, it can be very much inspected by GST team. CA office can also be inspected. Before I conclude and move to the question answers, I draw your attention towards one very important point. Whenever any inspection, search or seizure takes place at your client's premises or your premises, please go through INS 01 and please see whether they have taken part A, part B or part C. If only part A or part B is there, they cannot seize anything. They can just inspect. They can just examine the things. They can just look at the things very carefully, but they cannot seize anything. At the same time, if any CA's office is inspected or any search and seizure take place at CA's office, make sure that you keep accounts of Mr. A separate so that only accounts of Mr. A are given to the GST official. Otherwise, GST officials, they may take the whole CPU, whole backup, whole computer, whole data of yours, and that may affect other parties as well. So as far as possible, distinction should be there so that only that data is given to the GST team, which they are looking for, for which they are carrying out any inquiry or investigation, and no other data is given to them. And of course, they would agree if they get their needs. With this, I would like to conclude and I would like to hand over the stage back to Vidit to ask if any questions are there.
Right, sir. Thank you. We have one question.
Okay.
Just a minute. I'll just. Sir, the question has been asked by Dipali ji. What rescue does the taxable person have if the officers enter the premises with INS 01, but either all three parts are ticked or unticked?
You see, sometimes it may happen that GST officials, because if you tell them this then and there only, then they might get it corrected. Sometimes this might come to your rescue at latter part, at appeal part, or at High Court level by filing a writ petition under Article 226 of Constitution of India. But if you explain the same to the GST officials and record this in the Panchnama report itself, then this would definitely help you either then and there only or at later stage. Because two things cannot take. Section 67 subsection 1 is different, 67 subsection 2 is different. One is inspection, one is place of taxable person, another is in any place. For first, only inspection can take place. 67(2) that gives power of seizure as well. Not only search, but seizure as well. So officer has to be sure whether he is carrying out inspection or search and seizure. Inspection and search and seizure are not synonyms. Those are different terms. So those cannot take place. And this would definitely help you if a CGST official does not give you relief then and there. Relief will be with you at the time of appeal or at the time of High Court. the order or the proceedings in entirety will get quashed. Over to you with it if I'm done with this.
Right, sir. Just a minute. I'll just see that if there are any others. No, sir. There are no further questions. Just a minute. I'll just carry on with this. Thank you, sir, for this amazing and nourishing deliberation on the topic. I believe that every participant who has listened to you would have learned something new, and the question also which you told about that if whether CA office can be searched or not would have helped out. Now I would like to invite Piyush Bansal ji, past chairman of Jalandhar branch, to please give a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vidit. Thank you very much for the opportunity. The session by CA Devinder Singh ji was marvelous, sir. You have cleared the total mist around this concept of search and seizure from GST. You have clarified everything about CPC also, criminal procedures, their authorities, and also the last, the sixer, whether office of a CA can be searched, inspected, and similar things. Thank you very much for clarifying the things, sir. It was really enlightening and we enjoyed a lot. Though I would like to say that this enjoyment is not a thing which can be seized as per the decision of the Honorable High Court. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Piyush ji, for such a clear, crisp conclusion of today's session by Devinder ji. I would like to thank you for being here, sir. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a very good night.